So the first thing you have to deal with when you come up here is the water crossing, which is not really a big deal, but it's just a log that goes across here. It does get a little slippery in the wet time of year, or in the morning when it's got all the dew out. Okay. This log used to be one solid piece all the way across, and then some number of years ago it broke. So you kind of have to, unless you just want to jump from the big one here down onto this one, you just kind of jump off it on the side and just get back up on this one and continue across. And for those of you who have been here, I'm not telling you anything new. So up until about 2000 or so, you could actually drive all the way to the town site. And then as the bridges and whatnot washed out, the Forest Service decided they just didn't want the traffic in here anymore. So the bridges weren't put back in. And so now it's a roughly 5-mile hike in. And this is one of the car bridges that was here previously, and this runs along the old Monte Cristo railroad grade. So we're gonna turn the camera off and we'll show you anything along the way that is interesting, and we'll see you in a little over 5 miles. So we're continuing along the old railroad grade, the Monte Cristo Railroad, towards the town site. One thing we want to show you along the way that's kind of neat, and we're going to kind of leave the trail here for a minute off to the right. So right here where this big washout is, if you look right down here, you'll see the old railroad rails. So a little backstory on this. So roughly a decade ago, the trail came right through here, right in front of us. And there was a washout and over the winter, spring. And then when we came back out, the rails were exposed on the trail, and you kind of could just bypass around them. And then several years later, the washout got much larger and kind of blew this whole area out. So now the trail's been rerouted as we'll head back up there into the kind of the woods. But it's just kind of neat that originally everybody thought that all the rail and everything had been removed from the old railroad grade. And then when this washout occurred, these rails appeared. So there is some rail still out here from the original railroad grade. So we're going to continue on the old trail railroad grade towards the town site, and we should be there very shortly. All right, so we have reached the first point of our destination today, and that is the crossing to the Monte Cristo town site. So we're gonna go over here and cross over the bridge and head into the town site. And if you've been here before, you're familiar with these two signs. They're more modern signs, probably from the 50s, 60s era. So we're going to continue up the trail here. So as you first enter the town site, one of the first things that you'll come across, and this place is famously known for, is the railroad turntable. And this turntable is probably, I think, one of very few original pieces of infrastructure from the time of Monte Cristo, and it's probably the most significant item still here from that era. So this turntable was put in 1893, and it was used to rotate locomotives on the Everett and Monte Cristo Railway for the return trip to Everett. And it's still operational. It still turns. We've come up here and turned it many times, and other people, I'm sure, have done the same. So a lot of people, when they first come into this clearing here where the cabins are, assume that this area had something to do with the original mining town of Monte Cristo, which it doesn't. These cabins probably date to around the 1940s, and there was a kind of a resort lodge up here owned by a gentleman, the last name of Wilkie. And later, I believe it was sometime in the either 50s, the Forest Service, I think, took these back over. And now the Monte Cristo Preservation Association maintains them and utilizes them, and they have for some time now. So outside of these cabins in this area, and I believe this area was more of the rail yard area, the town was kind of broken up into an upper and lower area, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we head up. So over here you have some various artifacts from the mining era of Monte Cristo. And over here you have an ore bucket. And probably the thing people most know up here in this area, and everybody takes pictures of the most, is this old safe that sits back here under this tree. And the safe has been in the same location for many, 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 many years. So a short distance just up from where we just were is this foundation area with some artifacts. And this was the Monte Cristo Lodge, and it was a resort for a while where you could rent rooms in the 60s. And in I believe it was 83, it caught fire under suspicious circumstances and was burned down. But prior to that, this was the Boston American Mining Company cookhouse. And this was a multi-story structure, because when you look at the foundation, the footprint of it is fairly small, but it was a pretty good sized building. All right, we're going to head up the road here to a trail that goes up through an area that was known as DeMoss Street, which was one of the upper areas of Monte Cristo where a lot of the buildings and infrastructure was. So the minerals that put Monte Cristo on the map were discovered out here in 1889 by Joseph Pearsall, and the discovery was shared with Frank Peabody, which launched a search for ore bodies out here, and they started building wagon roads out here into the now Monte Cristo area. And then in 1893, the Monte Cristo Mining Company filed a plat in Cleveland, Ohio for the town of Monte Cristo. So as you come to the kind of first big switchback on this trail, off to the left is a structure that's known as the Peabody Garage. So there's a lot of speculation on what this was. I'm sure somebody has better history on it than we do. We've heard it's an original structure to the latter years of Monte Cristo. Others say it came later. So we'll leave that for your research. But I'll just take a quick walk around it. So one thing to note about the Monte Cristo area is it is a national forest, and then parts of it are wilderness, but there are plats up here that are private property. And so there's still quite a few property owners that have cabins out here from when you could still drive out here. So when you're out here, people have been known to be very disrespectful to these structures out here. So I'm not going to show you a whole lot of them. So as you continue up what again was DeMoss Street, so you got to imagine that this would have been, a street with some planked walkways. I can't remember if it had a pungent road or not. So along the way, there's some interpretive signs out here. And this whole area just has so much history. And there's a lot to talk about when you come out here. And we're not going to get everything 100% right or get in the weeds and get granular on some of the facts. We're going to try to keep it very broad because there's just so much history. If you want to know more about this area, there are a lot of books and websites you can go to and read up on it. And the Monte Cristo Preservation Association does a great job out here of keeping these interpretive signs in good condition, doing trail maintenance. They also put up some new interpretive signs, which we'll take a look at as we leave today. So if you've been out here before, you've seen this white picket fence and this memorial stone here, concrete pillar. And this is the Keyes Memorial. And James Keyes, who was born in 1906 and died in 1943, was a graduate of the United States Naval Academy in 1930. And he was a commanding officer of the USS Leary, which was a Gearing-class destroyer during World War II. And he also was awarded the Navy Cross posthumously for extraordinary heroism during action against the German submarines in the North Atlantic. So in December of 1943, his ship had been hit by 3 torpedoes and was sinking, and he gave an order to abandon ship. And as he checked to see if everybody was off the ship, he noticed a kitchen mess boy whose life jacket was torn and useless. So he gave him his own life jacket, and then he calmly climbed over the side of the ship and was swallowed up by the waters of the cold Atlantic, and saving that young crew member. So this memorial here was put here because Keyes had a home here that burned down in 1944, and it was a Keyes home, and it was the Monte Cristo Hotel, which his father ran. And nearby peak now is called Keyes Peak. So this is just a nod to his roots here at Monte Cristo, and as well as his service and heroism during World War II. So over here, next to the Keyes Memorial, is where the Royal Hotel would have been. And I'll try to put a picture up of what that looked like. It was one of the more cool structures here at the time. So we're gonna continue up the trail here, and we'll see you a little further up. So a little bit up the trail from where Peabody Garage and the Keyes Memorial is, there's these cabins up here, and they had various uses over the years. They were used by the Forest Service. Some of them probably date to the lodge time here. I'm not an expert on some of these more modern, if you will, structures compared to the age of what Monte Cristo is. And then over here from DeMoss Street, you had what was called Mercedes Street. So we're going to continue up DeMoss Street. So this was the site of the Monte Cristo Hotel. And up here, there's some newer interpretive signs that were put in by the MCPA. These are very nice signs that they did. And over here, there are some relics, artifacts put together, collected. We have some glass. This is actually a crucible, which was used in the assaying process to determine the mineral content of the ore. So now we're coming up on the site of the United Company's concentrator, and this was a mill that was out here in the 1890s and early 1900s. It was a 5-story building, and it could process up to 300 tons of ore a day. And it was put into operation around, I believe, 1894, and it ceased producing ore in 1912 and was dismantled in 1917. So we'll kind of walk up here first to where some of these stone walls, which would have been part of the foundation walls for the mill, are still standing. So the mill used a series of crushers and rollers, to process ore and minerals from host rock, and water wash jigs to develop concentrate. And then the concentrate was sent to Everett for smelting. And originally, when I looked at some records, it was believed this mill was 85% efficient in extracting the desired metals from the ore, the host rock. But I believe later it was determined it wasn't nearly that efficient, but I don't really have those numbers. And we're standing now on the upper tier, where the mill foundation tier is. And there's a few artifact items up here. When they did remediation here in around 2015 and they cleaned this site up, they essentially removed all of the contaminant soil and materials that were leaching into the river. And in doing so, they exposed some of the mill that you actually couldn't see back then. I was here, I think back in 2011, 2010. And when you came out here, it was pretty overgrown, and some of these really cool walls, you could make out bits and pieces of them, but you really couldn't make out the scale of them or how long they were or anything like that. So it's actually, in my opinion, a cooler site now than it was then. So the mill also was run by a 200 horsepower coreless engine, which also ran a 100 horsepower generator. And the generator furnished power to a motor on Mystery Hill, which compressed air for 3 power drills. And it also did provide electricity to the mill itself and the town. So we'll walk down to the next tier. And I say tier as this was multi-leveled, and it was a gravity mill. So just like the name infers, it utilized gravity in the milling production process. And you can see all these really cool stones that are all stacked in here. So I will try to put up a picture of what this site looked like prior to remediation and clearing these walls as far as all the brush and exposing them, because again, this was a very different site 15 years ago. It looked nothing like it does today. I think probably one of the coolest things we'll get to here momentarily is down below us. But we'll walk over here where these concrete foundations are, which would have had equipment mounted to them. So these would have been various motors, compressors, generators. There is a little bit of wood structure still left right here. And you can see these massive bolts that were cast in to hold whatever motor or piece of equipment that was mounted here. So there's a lot of artifacts out here that they uncovered during remediation. And it looks like somebody got creative with the artifacts and decided to make what looks like a little car. I haven't seen this before. It's interesting for sure. Creative. I'll give them points for creativity, I guess. And this here, you probably, if you know anything about mining or mining history, you probably have seen this before. And this was a rock drill. And this particular one was a Rand Drill Company rock drill, which dates it prior to the Ingersoll-Rand merger and Ingersoll-Sargent. So I believe this one says it's 1886 patent date, or 1884 on one side and 1886 on the other. It looks like there's some various cartwheels, and some other items here. So this is, I think, probably the coolest thing that they excavated during remediation, and it's this wall down here, the stone wall, and then it has this doorway in it, which you could kind of make out 10 years ago. You could see this doorway, but not much else on either side of it. So it's just really cool. It gives you some scale and understanding of what this structure might have looked like having a doorway. And then the wall continues down over here against the bank of the hillside. And then over here, there was obviously, and I don't know exactly what they had going on over here, but there's another wall with some large stacked stones, and it looks like some concrete poured on top, maybe to hold again some pieces of equipment. And then we also have some other artifacts. We have some sort of a door, like to a boiler, furnace, or something. Some bricks, some piping. Over here we have some rail. It's like train rail. And I'll put a picture up like I said before, but the rail, there's railroad trestle, and the rail ran all the way from over here into the site. And you'll see in the picture, and I'll try to give you a reference because there actually are some trestle posts still standing out here in the woods from the railroad trestle. So we'll walk over there real quick and take a look at those. And this is looking back up at the mill foundations we just walked around, the 3 different tiers that are up there. Possibly, maybe there's like 4 tiers, but three tiers. I knew I was right. So we're just walking a short distance from the concentrator site, and out here there's some bolts and washers, flange washers laying out here, and most likely why some of this stuff is out here is right here. You can see these milled posts standing, and these were part of the railroad trestle that came through here. And there's 3 of them standing right here. And I believe there are several laying on the ground here and there that are still intact. And I'll just walk down here and give you another view of those. So another item in the vicinity of the concentrator, and this is different from the one up near the quote-unquote town site red cabins, is this safe door. And it's just kind of sitting out here in the woods. You can see it looks like it has a brass where the dial would have gone. And then over here, I'll show you kind of how thick it was. You see the pin there, or latch rather, I think. Maybe it was the pin. Doesn't look like it moves. So it's just kind of cool. It's just another piece of Monte Cristo history sitting out here that's just kind of neat. Makes you wonder what it was out here for. If it held the payroll for the concentrator, you know, just never know. So we're gonna walk back up towards the concentrator. So we're passing above the United Company's concentrator site where we just were. And this is a view from above. And we're going to continue up this trail. And this goes out towards Glacier Basin. So we're coming up on the Comet terminal for the Comet mine. And the Comet mine was the highest mine in the Monte Cristo district. It's 2,700 feet above the town site, which puts it at 5,400 feet overall. And it was one of the properties established by the Willmans, and they were the first financiers of the district. And the mine was recorded with the county auditor in July of 1891 and was active in the late 1890s. And ore was shipped down a 10,000-foot aerial tramway to this receiving station in front of us, which is just above the United Company's concentrator where we just came from. So we'll take a quick look at this as we head up, and it's one of the better preserved structures, if you will, from the original era of Monte Cristo. There's a lot of things out here that people mistake for original era, but they came later. They're more modern. This is the real deal, and it's remarkably well preserved for how old it is and the environment it's been in all these years. And you can see these posts coming out, these support posts, and how they were cut. And right over here, sitting on top, is one of the many, many aerial tramway buckets that would have been on the aerial tramway that would have moved the ore from the mine down here. And if you start your way up towards the Comet mine you'll find these along the route going up, strewn everywhere. There used to be quite a few out here. I don't know if they moved them and put them in a different spot or they're still laying out here. So down over here, just below the tram terminal, there's some posts here that was part of the structure as well. And it's really cool that these are still here, because again, this stuff is like 130 some years old. So we're passing through the lower town site, quote, town site, on our way out. And over here, there's another interpretive sign that the Monte Cristo Preservation Association has put together. And again, these signs are very colorful, well done, great information. And mostly what makes this sign an excellent sign is that photo right there. So, but no, seriously, they are great signs. They add a lot to the area. Prior to these signs being here, people came up here and they just did not have enough knowledge to know what they were looking at. So these have helped out tremendously, and we're glad to see them up here, and they're super awesome. And we're super glad, Craig, thanks for including us and me in the sign here at Monte Cristo. Appreciate that. We'll make one walk over to the turntable. It was a little difficult earlier to look at it closely. There's quite a herd of individuals up here this weekend. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it coming up here before. There's always people up here, but not like this. So anyway, we'll walk over here, and I think one of Forrest's favorite things to do when he comes up here is to turn the turntable.
It's cool, man.
It's about as exciting to him as dropping rocks in mine shafts, so we'll let him go ahead and
Rocks and mine shafts might be slightly more exciting.
turn the turntable here. So it is pretty cool though that this still actually works. It's a little noisy, but a little WD-40 in the pack next time should take care of that. But again, this is a really cool piece of infrastructure that's still up here. You can probably kind of see why they maybe didn't want to take it out. I don't blame them. And then over here, we have a few artifacts that are wheels and well, I don't know if that's a flywheel or exactly what it's for. Looks like maybe this was a wheelbarrow wheel here. Looks like something railroad related there. The sad thing is, if you see that right there, it's a chain. Not that it's a robust chain or anything, but they started chaining some of this stuff up. I'm not sure if that was just to keep people from moving it around too much. I don't know that you'd really take it out of here, but the area's changed. Let's just put it that way. It has definitely has seen some changes. And then over here we have another interpretive sign that it looks like someone left their raincoat on. And it's the Everett Monte Cristo Railway. Very appropriate for this area where we're standing. And these are really sharp looking signs. So if you haven't been up here and seen them, I recommend coming up and taking a look. And we'll pan up here. We got the peak with the sun just starting to drop there. Over here, I don't think we talked about it coming in. It was a little noisy. This was a powerhouse, and this powerhouse had a Pelton wheel in it at one time, and it was removed. And I believe the Forest Service had actually turned this into a restroom at some point, and then now it's just kind of abandoned and closed up and not in use any longer. And again, keep in mind this whole area out here, there was a resort, cabin rentals, a lodge for a number of years. You could actually, like I said, drive all the way out here until about, I don't know, 2000, 2003, something like that, early 2000s. And as we make our way out, and I didn't show this on the way in, but there's this ore bucket who I've become acquainted with over the years. It used to be in multiple places. I'd find it down in the bed of where the water is, laying in the water, up on the trail. It's moved several times, so good to see that it's still up here. And one more time past the old resort and lodging signs of Monte Cristo. So this is as good a time as any to say thanks for coming along with us on this adventure to Monte Cristo. We appreciate you watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. We'd like to say thanks for following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And please, if you haven't already, remember to subscribe to our channel and to comment and like. And we will see you in our next video. And until then, take care.